Yeah, we back. Yeah, we back. Now, today's going to be a quick video. Today's video is going to be a follow-up to the ones I dropped the other day entitled, U.S. General Attacks Ibrahim Traoré for Using Gold to Protect His Power. And also, Ibrahim Traoré calls out the president of Ivory Coast after a failed overthrow attempt. Now, sometime last week, I saw there was the travel advisory, a level 4 travel advisory in Burkina Faso that was put out by the United States government. And shortly after, we got information that there was a failed overthrow attempt on the administration of Ibrahim Traoré. Take a look up on the screen. Several military officers arrested in a suspected coup plot in Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso's military government has announced that it has successfully thwarted what it has described as a major coup plot targeting the leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Burkina Faso Security Minister Mahamadou Sana disclosed in a TV address on Monday that both active and retired soldiers allegedly working in coordination with terrorist groups had conspired to storm the presidential palace. The group reportedly planned to execute the attack last week. Sana claimed that the objective was to plunge the country into chaos and install a regime under the control of an international organization. He said the group also attempted to manipulate public sentiment by using religious and traditional leaders to sway military officers into supporting the coup. He further alleged that the masterminds of the plan were operating from Ivory Coast, identifying 2 former army officers believed to be behind the operation. So far, Ivorian authorities have not responded to the accusations. Now, when it comes to President Alassane Ouattara, the president of Ivory Coast, we already know that President Alassane Ouattara is an adversary of the AES. He's a hostile government standing in opposition to the AES. And we already know when it comes to President Alassane Ouattara, the president of Ivory Coast, his geopolitical alignments are more closely aligned with France and the United States and the Western Bloc in general, right? Because when he came to power through the force of the French military and U.S. diplomatic backing. If you remember, back when the military in Niger came to power, he was the first one to pledge his willingness to send troops to restore democracy. Take a look up on the screen. Ivory Coast ready to send troops to Niger. President Alassane Ouattara says the country will provide a battalion and has made all financial arrangements for the operation. That was back in 2023. So obviously, when I hear these allegations of the government in Ivory Coast allowing their country to be used as a rear base of operations and a rear base of destabilization against the government in Burkina Faso, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. It's actually very consistent with their geopolitical alignment. But now I want to switch lanes to General Michael Langley, right? 4-star Army commander, Supreme Commander of AFRICOM, General Michael Langley. Now, as the Supreme Commander of AFRICOM, which is United States Africa Command, his job is to protect and defend U.S. military, political, economic, and diplomatic interests across the African continent, right? Make sure the United States government maintains access to the vast mineral wealth, the resources, and also to counter any moves being made by Russia and China. That's basically his job description, right? Yes, he's a fellow black man, yeah, whatever. But that's his main job. His job is not to stand in solidarity and brotherhood with you as a fellow black man. His job is to stand in solidarity with the white man back in Washington, D.C. That is his job. And if he has to eliminate you as a black man in order to defend American economic, diplomatic, and geopolitical interests, then that's what he gonna do, right? You're simply gonna be collateral damage, right? Ain't no black brotherhood over here. Now, a few weeks ago, General Michael Langley, he was testifying, I think it's called the United States Armed Service Committee, and he was testifying in front of a gentleman by the name of Chairman Wicker. And basically, General Langley was giving Chairman Wicker the rundown of what's going on in Africa. And one name particularly came up during the discussion. He had mentioned President Ibrahim Traoré, the president of Burkina Faso. And he had basically accused Ibrahim Traoré of corruption, of using the nation's gold reserves to, as he said, protect his regime, right? Now, I'm going to play that clip. I'll be right back.
I can imagine a situation, though, in which the ruling elite of a country is receiving gratuities on the side that inure to the benefit of the strongman leader and not to the populace of the country. Does that sort of corruption and bribery go on with regard to the Belt and Road?
Absolutely, Chairman. You know, I see this, and I don't mind calling them out, but Captain Traoré and Burkina Faso, you know, as they know that both whether it's their gold reserves, that is all those proceeds are just in exchange to protect the junta regime.
All right, we back. Now, like I said in my last video, to me, all these sequence of events happening all in this short period of time, to me, it's kind of crazy, right? Just a few weeks ago, we have General Langley testifying in front of Chairman Wicker, in front of the Armed Services Committee, accusing Ibrahim Traoré of corruption, right? Saying that he's taken the nation's gold reserves to protect his government, right? And then shortly after that, we see a travel advisory, a level 4 travel advisory put out by the United States government against Burkina Faso. And then just days after that, we see a failed coup attempt against the government of Ibrahim Traoré. And then the Minister of Security in Burkina Faso comes out and says that the individuals who are behind the attack have been taking refuge across the border in Ivory Coast. And then just days after that, right, days after the failed overthrow attempt, we see General Michael Langley himself travel to Ivory Coast to have a personal private meeting with the Minister of Defense in Ivory Coast, who is also the head of the National Intelligence Department in Ivory Coast, right? Who is also actually the baby brother of the president of Ivory Coast. Take a look up on the screen, as you can see. Now, like I said, it could all be an elaborate coincidence. I don't know, but to me, the sequence of events, it's just, it's very crazy. But anyways, like I said in my last video, I'm not really sure why General Michael Langley is worried about the gold in Burkina Faso. Last time I checked, General Michael Langley, he's from Louisiana. So why you worried about the gold in Burkina Faso, man? Worry about the resources in Louisiana, right? Worry about, the rivers in Louisiana and the seafood and the timber and the natural gas. Worry about the resources down in Shreveport, Louisiana. Why are you worried about how the black men of Burkina Faso are managing their gold? That belongs to them. They're a sovereign black men. The Almighty Creator saw it fit to give the black men of Burkina Faso a never-ending abundant supply of gold. Why are you worried about that? Worry about what's going on in Shreveport, Louisiana. Like I said, man, I just find it funny, right? Because under the previous administrations in Burkina Faso, when the gold was being extracted by the Western multinational corporations, when the gold was being shipped out the country, when the gold was being funneled into the Western economies, right? Nobody was worried about how the gold was being managed back then, right? But now we see, gold refineries being constructed. Take a look up on the screen. The construction of the first gold refinery begins in Burkina Faso. That was towards the end of 2023, right? Take a look up on the screen. Burkina Faso nationalizes UK gold mines, right? Now, we see Ibrahim Traoré taking back the gold mines. Oh, now all of a sudden, we worried about how the gold is being managed, right? But under previous administrations, when the gold is being shipped out by the Western multinational corporations, nobody was worried about how the gold was being managed back then. Nobody was calling into question how the gold is being managed back then. But now we taking the gold back. Now we stockpiling the gold, while at the same time the price of gold is soaring straight to the sky. It's going through the roof right now. The price of gold going crazy right now. Now we worried about how the gold is being managed, right? Like I told you, his job description is to make sure the United States maintains access to the vast mineral wealth all across the continent, right? So when he sees, black men on the continent taking back the mineral resources, now all of a sudden he got to run to the white man and let the white man know, hey man, listen, they stockpiling the gold. It's crazy, bro. But anyways, I want to go a little deeper on the relationship between the United States and Ivory Coast. Now, one of the biggest recent geopolitical losses for the United States was when the military government in Niger had overthrew the previous regime and then ordered the American military to leave the country, right? And keep in mind, the United States had invested over $100 million into establishing a massive drone base in the country. And when the military government in Niger came to power, they basically told the American government, it's time to leave, bro. It's time to leave. It was a very embarrassing moment for General Michael Langley. But right after that, it was President Alassane Ouattara, the president of Ivory Coast, who stepped up and opened his doors to the American military, right? So Ivory Coast essentially is like the unofficial, headquarters for the United States in West Africa right now. As you can see, General Michael Langley, President Alassane Ouattara, kicking it, having a good time, talking big business, right? So obviously the geopolitical alignment of Ivory Coast is very closely tied to the geopolitical alignment of the United States. Now, I want to switch lanes, right? I want to show you that this tactic is not the first time it has been used by the United States. And when I say this tactic, I mean the use of a black face to advance and defend a United States imperial interest. I want to go back in history, right? But I want to give you an example of somebody who was appointed by the United States government to defend their interests that actually went off script And instead of defending the interests of the white man, he actually joined forces with his brothers and defended the interests of the black man instead. Now, I want to talk about Frederick Douglass. Now, a lot of y'all don't know, but Frederick Douglass in the late 1800s actually was appointed to a diplomatic position in Haiti. Yes, they appointed Frederick Douglass as, I forget what his title was when he was a diplomat in Haiti. I think it was like, I forget. But somewhat of an ambassador, right? Kind of like how General Michael Langley is right now, serving as an ambassador for the U.S. government. But instead of being a pawn of the United States government, Frederick Douglass actually stood in solidarity with his black brothers down in Haiti instead. So I want to talk about that. Take a look up on the screen. In 1889, Frederick Douglass was appointed as the Minister Resident and Consul General to Haiti by President Benjamin Harrison. In September 1889, Frederick Douglass was appointed as the Charge d'Affaires for Santo Domingo as well as the Minister to Haiti. In 1891, Frederick Douglass resigned as the Minister Resident and Consul General to Haiti because he was disgusted over the maneuvering by the State Department and American business to acquire Mont Saint-Nicolas. Now, Mont Saint-Nicolas was a very strategic piece of land located in the northern section of Haiti that the United States wanted to acquire to establish a naval base in the country, right? Take a look up on the screen. As you can see, this beautiful piece of territory. The United States wanted to get their hands on it, and they wanted to use Frederick Douglass, the black face, to get the deal done, right? To convince those black men down in Haiti to give us the land, right? But Frederick Douglass, instead of doing the bidding of the white man, instead, he stood in solidarity with his brothers and defended the interests of the black man instead. Now, when Frederick Douglass came to Haiti, he had met certain individuals, right? Certain black men like Antonin Furman, right? One of our greatest intellectual minds of that time. Antonin Furman was a lawyer, a diplomat, an intellectual, a scholar, an author, a general, one of the main intellectual defenders of the black race during that time, right? Back in 1885, he wrote a legendary book entitled The Equality of the Human Races, which was a direct response to the literature that was being circulated by certain white supremacists like Arthur de Gobineau, right? And keep in mind, Arthur de Gobineau, a lot of his literature was used by Hitler to justify what he did later down the line, decades later. Back during that time, you had a lot of European scholars who were pushing the idea of a so-called master race, right? We are the master race. So Antonin Furman, he had published books responding and debunking those falsified sentiments. And his most legendary book entitled The Equality of the Human Races. Also, years later, in the year 1900, Antonin Furman would also go on to organize the first ever Pan-African conference, gathering black intellectuals, black public figures, black leaders from all over the world to discuss strategies to resist imperialism and colonialism. And during that time, it was a crucial time because the European militaries were making violent incursions into the continent. So Antonin Furman was standing in opposition to that. And when Frederick Douglass came to Haiti as a representative of the American government, Antonin Furman at that time was serving as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Commerce, and the Minister of Finance. Now let's continue. Let's talk about it, right? Take a look up on the screen. At the age of 71, Frederick Douglass was appointed ambassador to the Republic of Haiti by the administration of U.S. President Benjamin Harrison. Frederick Douglass had helped stunt for Harrison during the 1888 presidential elections, and the position was something of a reward for the elderly abolitionist. However, Frederick Douglass' short time in the post from the end of 1889 to the summer of 1891 was an absolute debacle. It served to tarnish the latter days of Douglass's venerable career and is widely seen by both his contemporaries and later biographers and critics as having been calamitous. Within 2 months of assuming his duties, Douglass learned of the presence of American naval officers scouting the conditions at the mole. Now, the mole is Mont Saint-Nicolas. That's that piece of territory I mentioned before that the United States wanted to establish a naval base on in the northern section of the country, right? Could you imagine a naval base in the northern section of the country, the former Kingdom of Haiti, Christophe's territory? Oh my God, let's continue. This event, coupled with the press coverage in the United States, prompted a rise in popular opinion against territorial concessions. Now, take a look up on the screen, right? To the left, you got Antonin Furman, right? In the middle, you have Admiral Bancroft Girardi. I believe that was a captain of the U.S. Navy, and he was the main one trying to establish a naval base in the country, right? Of course, Frederick Douglass was the black face, but Admiral Bancroft Girardi, he was the one that was really the brains behind the operation, right? Frederick Douglass was supposed to be the black face to convince the black man down in Haiti to give up the land. Now let's continue. Frederick Douglass and Girardi met with President Hippolyte and his foreign minister, Antonin Firmin. Now, this is President of Florville Hippolyte. He was the president at that time. And of course, his foreign minister, his minister of foreign affairs, Antonin Firmin, his right-hand man in the government. And if you take a look up on the screen, this is an old photo from the late 1800s. As you can see to the left, President Hippolyte, seated to the left, and then to the right, you see Antonin Firmin right beside him. And as you can see, the other, elite men of the government, back during that time, the patriotic government of Haiti back in those days. Let's continue. Frederick Douglass and Girardi met with President Hippolyte and his foreign minister, Antonin Firmin, and convinced them to approve the lease pending the approval of the legislative body. 5 days later, the United States made a formal request for a lease. To both Girardi and Frederick Douglass's surprise, Antonin Firmin refused to consider the application. Now, time out, right? Time out. So the United States sent Frederick Douglass over because they believed that, as a black face, maybe the black men in that government would be more open to the idea of giving up their territory if they see a fellow black man, coming to, shake them down. So Antonin Firmin, he was not moved. He was like, yeah, bro, yeah, that's cool. But yeah, I'm not giving up the land, though. I ain't giving up the land, though. Let's continue. To both Girardi and Frederick Douglass's surprise, Antonin Firmin refused to consider the application. Antonin Firmin pointed out that the application carried Girardi's signature and not Frederick Douglass's, even though Frederick Douglass was the authorized representative of the United States in Haiti. He told them that since Girardi has not presented his credentials from Washington to the Haitian government, the Haitian government would be foolish to consider it and could not conceivably bring it to the Haitian executive. A formal written application for the lease was submitted on February 2nd, yet the departure of President Hippolyte from Port-au-Prince to quell political opposition and the arrival of 5 more American warships ended the possibility of any agreement. In April, Frederick Douglass cabled the State Department to report that Haiti has declined the lease of the mole. On April 21st, 1891, Frederick Douglass and Girardi presented the new lease proposal to Antonin Firmin. The Haitians responded the next day, declining to grant it. Antonin Firmin argued that the terms of the lease would inaugurate a profound erosion of Haitian independence, as it would effectively cede the republic's sovereign right to dispose of its territory according to its own wishes. In the days following, Frederick Douglass asked Antonin Firmin if he would reconsider the lease if the United States fleet was withdrawn from Haitian waters. Antonin Firmin was non-committal, but when the fleet departed, negotiations were over. Months afterward, to the great relief of Harrison and Blaine, Frederick Douglass resigned from his post. Now, I want to get into a lecture. Frederick Douglass gave a lecture in Chicago, I believe it was, on January 2nd, 1893, a few years after that incident. And he actually spoke on it in his lecture in Chicago. So I want to actually, talk about that. Take a look up on the screen. Frederick Douglass said this: "One of these bays has attracted the eyes of American statesmanship. The Mont Saint Nicolas, of which we have heard much and may hear much more, is a splendid harbor. It is properly styled the Gibraltar of that country. It commands the windward passage, the natural gateway of the commerce both of the new and old world. Important now, our statesmanship sees that it will still be more important when the Nicaragua Canal shall be completed. Hence, we want this harbor for a naval station. It is seen that the nation that can get it and hold it will be the master of the land and sea in its neighborhood. Some rash things have been said by Americans about getting possession of this harbor. We are to have it peaceably if we can, and forcibly if we must. I hardly think that we shall get it by either process, for the reason that Haiti will not surrender peacefully, and it would cost altogether too much to wrest it from her by force. I thought in my simplicity, when Minister and Consul General to Haiti, that she might, as an act of comedy, make this concession to the United States, but I soon found that the judgment of the American minister was not the judgment of Haiti. Until I made the effort to obtain it, I did not know the strength and vigor of the sentiment by which it would be withheld. Haiti has no repugnance to losing control over a single inch of her territory. No statesman in Haiti would dare to disregard this sentiment. It could not be done by any government without costing the country revolution and bloodshed. The attempt to create angry feeling in the United States against Haiti because she thought proper to refuse us the Mont Saint Nicolas is neither reasonable nor credible. There was no insult or broken faith in the case. Haiti has the same right to refuse that we had to ask, and there was insult neither in the asking or in the refusal." Now, that was a segment of Frederick Douglass's lecture that he did in Chicago back in 1893, where he actually spoke on this diplomatic incident where the United States tried to acquire a piece of land in the northern section of Haiti to establish a naval base, and they tried to use Frederick Douglass as a black face. But Frederick Douglass, you know, being the formidable black man that he was, being the honorable black man that he was, instead of doing the bidding of the white man, he stood in solidarity with his brothers down in Haiti. So shout out to Frederick Douglass. Unfortunately, it's been a very long time since we've had diplomats like that, right? Black men who understood the bigger picture. You know, General Michael Langley, he would never. General Michael Langley, he would never do what Frederick Douglass did. Never in a million years. But like I always say, man, our forefathers, our ancestors, our predecessors, they were simply superior to us in every single way. In every single way you can imagine, our forefathers were superior to us intellectually, diplomatically, militarily. Just, man, our ancestors, we really have to study them because, like I said, compared to them, we are garbage. You know, our forefathers was on another level in every aspect of life. And don't even get me started on our foremothers. They were also on another level. You know, listen, all praise is due to our forefathers and our foremothers. But yeah, man, that's the reality of the matter. Like I said, this is not the first time this tactic has been employed by the United States government or the Western governments in general, putting a black face as the figurehead for white Western imperial interests. It's not the first time. It's not going to be the last time. That's why we have to study history, because history has a funny habit of repeating itself. But anyways, man, not going to be here too long, man. It's your boy Neferkari. That's Elaine back in the Billy. Yes, indeed. Cash App in the description. Support the channel. Album out now. Sahel 1816. Support the album. Go to my homepage or go to my playlist section. Sahel 1816. Enjoy the album. And I'm gone. Peace. Told me she loved me and said that it's real. So independent, ain't signing no deal. Feel like a king and I'm up in Cap Henry. I'm in the citadel, top of the hill. Trying to run up and we let off a cannon. Secret location, I'm keeping it sealed. You ain't retaliate, Franco Medina. Came to the country and he got killed. You ain't retaliate, Rafi Mans. Thought you was loyal, thought you was real. Didn't even want to come pick up the body. Had your man locked up, he died in the cell. Up at the palace, I'm throwing the party. Right on the south and I'm giving them hell. And my little shorty, she looking exotic. African features, she casting a spell. Run to the check like I work on my fitness. Wake up each morning and handle my business. Said that she love me, she want my genetics. Wanna get married and make it official. Wanna get married and have my babies. Up in the city, I'm riding Mercedes. Up in the city, they treat me like royalty. Feeling like Dolph, talking about lords. Spreading my wings and I had to get fly. Up in the top, an incredible vibe. Came from the bottom, I'm up in the sky. Gave one look and said, baby, you fine. Wake up each morning and handle my business. They just be talking, you see me, I live it. Ride on my enemies, sounding like thunder. 1804, got that shit in my spirit. 1804 when I step in the building. 1804, that's word of my mother. Rock my women and die for my brother. Never gon' fall when I'm deep under pressure. Tell them we back and they better accept it. Move like a king, every step is divine. Ride on my enemies with no exception. Taking revenge and I'm taking what's mine. Pour up a drink and it's time that we toast. Watching my back, keep my enemies close. Only the family, I stick with my brothers. Cannons position outside of the coast. Heavy artillery for the protection. Move like a general, stick to the code. Feel like a king when I'm up in the north. Beautiful women, they trying to get chose. Launch an invasion all over the south. Capture the capital with all my woes. Look at my energy and my demeanor. Dripping that ice and that's head of my toes. Lately I'm flexing all on the Americans. Flexing my muscle on missing my road. Just got a carriage just coming from London. Boy, that shit cash, I ain't taking no loans. Boy, that shit cash, that's fresh on the boat. Enemy know I got millions in gold. Enemy know I got choppers and cannons. How did I do it? They can't understand it. How did I do it? It's cause I'm relentless. Call me King Harry, my name is cemented. Call me King Harry, I'm up in the palace. Call me King Harry, I'm raising the status.